Cheryl, do you want to do roll call?
Yes. Council members Grunmeyer, Bash,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman,
Yes.
Mayor Newton.
Yes, here.
Let the record show that Councilmember Hannah is absent.
Thank you, Cheryl. We will now recess to closed session. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to reconvene the public session, and we'll have a report of actions taken in closed session. John?
Yes, the City Council considered the matters listed on the agenda, and there are no reportable actions.
Thank you. I'm honored to lead you in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then if you would remain standing, we'll have the invocation by Pastor Aaron.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening.
Thank you.
There you go.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. And on behalf of New Beginnings Community Church, I just want to say thank you for the way that you serve Norco. We are blessed to be a church here. So with that, would you bow your heads with me? Father, we just thank you for this night, Lord. I thank you for bringing everyone into this room, Lord God. We thank you for a town, Lord Jesus, in which we can live and grow and prosper, Father. So, Lord, I pray for your wisdom over every decision, over everything discussed in this room tonight. Lord, that there would be solutions, that there would be answers, Father God. And, Lord, that the people of Norco would prosper and their lives would be abundantly full. Lord, I thank you that you are here with us now, and we just give you this night, Lord. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have a proclamation and a business appreciation. So I'm going to meander on down. Chief, would you join me?
There you go, buddy. Mr. Mayor, Council, department heads, and citizens, February recognizes that in the state of California that it's Safely Surrender Month. I'm going to read a little statement about the history of it, and tonight's proclamation also states that it is Safely Surrender Month in the city of Norco, recognizing the program and what it does. So the Safely Surrender Baby Law responds to the increasing number of newborn infant deaths due to abandonment in unsafe locations. First created in January 2001, the Safely Surrendered Baby Law was signed permanently into state law in January 2006. The law's intent is to save lives of newborn infants at risk of abandonment by encouraging parents or persons with lawful custody to surrender the infant within 72 hours of birth, with no questions asked. From January 1st, 2001 to December 31st, 2015, 770 newborns have been surrendered in California. 84 newborns were surrendered during 2015 calendar year. This is compared with 169 infants that were abandoned since 2001, 5 of which occurred in 2015. All Riverside County fire stations are safely surrender facilities, and you'll see these placards out front of all of our fire stations denoting that. So it is a very important law for the obvious reasons, and we just want to support the program and let the county and the residents know that should you need that, by all means, your fire stations stand ready. That's all I have, sir.
Not quite. So this proclamation, now I therefore, Greg Newton, Mayor of the City of Norco, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of February 2017 as Safe Surrender Month, and joins with the Riverside County Fire Department to bring awareness to the safely surrendered baby law, because every child deserves a chance for a healthy life. Thank you.
Take a picture. Want to take a picture? Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to take this time to invite Mickey and Ray up from All City Roofing, or Circle City Roofing, pardon me. It's late in the evening, okay?
On 6th Street.
Come over here.
Come on.
Okay, so, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Scott DeRosa. I'm the Vice Chair with the Economic Development and Advisory Committee, otherwise known as EDAC. And we are working in partnership with the city in honoring a lot of great businesses in our city that are there to support the city and do lots of contributions from volunteer work to hosting things to employing residents in our neighborhood. Anyway, so the city knows that there's a lot of businesses out there that do a lot to help it out, and they really wanted to see businesses get recognized. So EDAC is assisting in recognizing those cities once a month. So tonight is my honor and privilege to go ahead and show acknowledgement for the city, Circle City Roofing, and their contributions to the city. If you would hold this for right now, and I'm going to read what it says. The City of Norco hereby honors Circle City Roofing for its constant commitment to Norco, putting roofs over the heads of local families for over 24 years, while generously supporting local projects and reaching out to our senior citizens with a true Horsetown USA spirit. Mickey and Ray, we truly, truly appreciate everything you've done, and congratulations.
Well, thank you.
Would you like to say something?
No, Ray, you want to say something?
Want to say a few words?
Sure he does.
There's customers out there, buddy.
Just a couple words.
Rain's coming.
It's really been a pleasure working in the town for the last 24 years, mainly because Mickey lived here. That's why we got started here, and we've had our business at a few locations, and to me it's been a great 24 years serving the community. So that's about all I have to say. Thanks.
Okay. Okay. Let's move to City Council business items, City Council communications, reports on regional boards. Robin, let's start with you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have nothing to report.
I do. We had our veterans, George Ingalls Veterans Memorial Committee, Executive Committee meeting, and we want to invite especially all our veterans, but everyone's encouraged to attend the Vietnam War Veterans Welcome Home ceremony. Will be on March 29th at 9 a.m. at the Veterans Memorial at Ingalls Park. So please come join us. We'll have a short ceremony, again, welcoming home everybody from the Vietnam War that weren't forgotten. But that doesn't mean that all your other veterans shouldn't show up. So please show up also. Robin says you had nothing, but it was kind of nice the other day, the League of Cities meeting. We were in Wildemar. All 5 council people, along with the city manager, were there. A lot of good legislative updates that were brought out at that meeting, so I'm glad that all of us were attended. And then tomorrow, we're going to start our meeting of the Day of the Cowboy, so mark your calendar, July 22nd, it's a Saturday. We're going to start our planning for that. And that's it, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, Ted. Kevin?
Yeah, I have quite a few things. Fast. First off, I was on the school naming committee for the new online school. There's athletes out there and people that just don't know how to sit in a classroom, and so this is an opportunity, this new way of teaching, where they'll go online and then they'll also have the opportunity to come to class. It'll be centered over at JFK for high school. I didn't realize we had several young adults that are gymnasts, they're soccer players, they're all kinds of things, and they're national athletes. And so they attended a couple tennis players, and to go to school, what they do is they do this online program. So it's really very, very interesting. STEM Academy, that is another opportunity for the kids. I went to the groundbreaking for that, and that is going to be amazing. Science, technology, engineering, and math. It's going to be located over at Eleanor Roosevelt High School, but what they're doing now with the high schools is every high school has a specialty. So they're open to people traveling. So if you want to learn how to fix cars, you go to Corona. You want to go to the STEM Academy for technology or math, you go to Eleanor Roosevelt. Norco is going to have their own specialties, which Berwin and I took a tour, and that was pretty cool. The RCA, I thought that was kind of interesting. A couple of the statistics. The RCA is the Western Riverside Conservation Authority, and what they do is builders, and I've explained this before, they build something on a property and they have to mitigate a species or something like that, so they buy into these corridors, wildlife corridors. Primarily, most of them are out in the Western Riverside area, Marietta, Temecula, Hemet. But just to give you an idea of the kind of things they do, just this year they've purchased 12 properties, 1,062 acres. 2 of the properties, one was $2,016,000, another one was $2,600,000 and some change. But what's really amazing is that this is considered the premier such conservation authority, and they get all kinds of money from state and feds. So out of the 12 properties they purchased, 4 were purchased with federal and state money. So that's pretty cool. And what it does is it helps the builder to build, and is not having to sort of sit around and waiting for a burrowing owl to finish mating or whatever. Veterans Committee, we had our meeting, Ted and I, which was, he mentioned. March Air Force Base, very interesting. We discovered that we're trying to save this hangar, and by extension save things in Norco. Turns out that the federal government didn't do their due diligence. They didn't consult on this. And so all of a sudden they're consulting, and we may have a stay of execution for that hangar, but you never know how that works. But it was interesting. It's sort of like what we've learned here in Norco. We were able to help the people in Riverside, and there's a lot of veterans involved. In fact, our own Veterans Committee for the George A. Ingalls Veterans Memorial Committee actually sent out a letter, which I was really proud of the fact that our vets decided to do that. I didn't really even ask. The Western Riverside Council of Governments, the HERO program is going to get great guns. One of the things they're trying to do, which some of the contractors don't really like, is lower the interest rates for the HERO program. So if they go in and put in an air conditioner or something, the rate is kind of lower, but part of that is because they're trying to lower the interest rate for the HERO program, which is for seniors and people that don't have a lot of money to get air conditioners, roofing, things like that. Some interesting statistics that have come up through this. Total population right now, 2012, in Riverside County, Western Riverside, is 1,773,000. They predict by 2040 a change of 37%. It'll go to 2.4 million. Total households from 525 to 775. And so what's occurring is they want to raise all the rates, the TUMP fees, because what the TUMP does is, in a nutshell, it mitigates the damage that the new people do to your roads and different parts of your infrastructure. And that's in a nutshell. But they want to raise these pretty significantly, and there's quite a bit of controversy at the meetings. Single family will go from $8,800 and change to $9,700, 10%. Multifamily will go from $6,200 to $63,000, which isn't too bad. Industrial will jump 6% from 1.73 a square foot to 1.83. Where it really gets difficult and where I kind of have a problem is retail development will go from $10.49 to $12.71, which is a jump of 21%. One of the things that people I don't think realize is that cities are expected to create taxable sales tax, and we work really hard to do it, and we get almost no money from that effort. It's taken from everybody else. I mean, taken by everybody else. It goes to education, it goes to this person, goes to that person. And so this is just another way that maybe, once again, you're stacking a burden on the back of retail. Service is another one that also has jumped 12%, which is kind of difficult. And it gets worse. Retail eventually, I mean, between 17 and 20, the jump is astronomical. So anyway, we're kind of in the middle of all that stuff. Again, I'm sorry for all this stuff, but I had a whole bunch of meetings. We'll talk about the SC Riverside Transmission Reliability Project. It's on our agenda. Suffice to say, I was really proud of the fact we had a ton of Narconians there. I see one sitting there. I sat and we were there together, and there's a whole bunch of them sitting in the back that I ran into later. Oh, you were there too? Yeah, I saw you too. They're quite upset, and but I was really proud of I was proud to be part of that. That was very cool. What else? Well, I got some other things here, but they're kind of boring. One of the other things, while there's still people here, we have a resident, a man named Joe Nadunzio, who is 100 years old in March, and I'm hoping maybe we can do something special, send him something or honor him here. He is a veteran of war. He enlisted prior to World War II and fought the entire war with the Army Air Corps. He was the Marshall Islands, the Solomons. I mean, you name a battle, and he was involved in it as part of the Air Corps. And so I'm hoping maybe in the next meeting we might be able to celebrate his 100th birthday with him. And that's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Can I ask you a question? On the WRCOG, the residential rate, is that still the most expensive rate per foot?
Well, they're kind of messing with these numbers, and these are big discussions that are occurring. They're claiming that they are competitive, but then the other problem that they're claiming that they have is because a lot of the building that's happening is in areas that is not developed. So it's not like they're building in a place like San Bernardino where there's already streets that are in decent shape. But the rate, the single family, it's one of the highest.
Okay.
And especially because they're building out in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
And the building contractors and developers are really balking at all this. But the one that scares me the most, I mean, quite honestly, part of me feels, and I said this at the meeting, the single-family residential, I think we're going to look back on this period and say we're insane because of the building. And in a way, this may slow it enough that maybe the traffic and everything will catch up. The one that concerns me is the retail. That's a huge hit.
And commercial.
Commercial. Retail, yeah.
Good report. Thank you. I have no reports. Our Chino de Salter Authority board meeting this month was canceled. It'll start up again in March. So we'll move on to City Council consent items. Any members wish to pull any items, or I'll entertain a motion to approve?
Move to approve, if no one.
Have a motion and a second. Cheryl?
Councilmembers Grunmeyer.
Yes.
Bash. Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman. Mayor Newton.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item 4, public comments.
Yes, Mayor, I have two cards. David Santillan.
Hi, David.
Oh, Good evening, members of the council and mayor. David Santillan, I'm a field representative for Assemblymember Sabrina Cervantes. Bear with me, I do get quite nervous when I speak. Anywho, we're rapidly approaching the bill introduction deadline, February 17th, which is this Friday. I did want to give you an update with 3 new bills that the Assembly member has introduced. AB 226, the Military Spouse Teaching Credential. The bill would require the Commission on Teacher Credentialing to give priority to applicants who are spouses of active U.S. military service members. And then AB 361, the Apprenticeship Tax Credit. In summary, employers would be allowed a $1,000 tax credit for up to 10 apprentices employed for at least 7 months out of the taxable year. And then AB 410, the teacher induction fee abolition. In summary, school districts would be prohibited from charging new teachers a teacher induction fee. I think it's about $4,000. So this bill would require, the money would be used from Prop 98 to pay for these fees. So it's not a state mandated program. And I did want to mention that we are having an event February 25th at the Eastvale Community Center. And California Competes tax credit program. There's currently $68 million available for business owners who want to apply for this tax credit. So we do encourage anyone to attend. We do have flyers, and we have created a Facebook post. So if you or anyone wants to share that, more than happy to have everyone attend. I mean, $68 million can really help anyone wanting to expand their business in California. Thank you. I have copies with me. I can provide the clerk with some.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Do me a favor and extend our invitation to the Assembly member to come visit the city of Norco.
I will. Thank you.
Jody Weber.
Hi, Jody.
Hi. Thank you, Mayor. I've not had an opportunity to address you in that fashion, so congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
Council, thank you. Last night, I look at my sliding glass door, and the latch is unlocked. It abuts my kitchen, my family area, and my television. The first thought that comes to my mind is, I have to lock it. I have to lock it because of this fear of a home invasion robbery when you hear stories about people busting in the front door and busting in your back door. Am I paranoid? Potentially, except for that there was a home invasion robbery at the house next door to me at 11 a.m. within the last 6 months. Within the last 2 weeks, I joined this neighborhood post thing. I'm not on Facebook, but I've been monitoring things. I've had mail stolen out of my mailbox, so I have a locking mailbox now. I have cameras, I have an alarm system. But in the last 2 weeks, there have been 2 posts about mail theft on my street. There have been issues with vandalism. Actually, I live on Vandermolen, by the way. And the reason that's significant is because all the homes on Vandermolen across the street from us is a protected land. We have nobody that lives across the street from us. So we have stair-step houses. I can't see the front door of any of my neighbors' homes to look out for them. You don't have neighbors across the way looking out in your homes. And if you live on the flat portion of Vandermolen, there is staggering such that you can't see. So this is a unique area of Norco. You have loitering going on up at Valley near the golf course. Now, I don't know who built the new fence because you had people parking on the horse trail. They broke out the light, they leave trash, they are tagging the rocks. They are, at least Saturday night, driving SUVs, or I mean not SUVs, but ATVs across the top ridge all the way to the Orange Pumpkin. The back hill, which abuts the golf course, you have motorcycle people. Now, that happens during the summer when it's very dry. All I'm trying to introduce to you is those recent things happened in the last 2 weeks. I'm asking, as you move into your budget discussions this spring, that you consider that we do need to look out for the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens in this community. There are plenty of people that I think are in this audience that have been victims of crime in the city of Norco. I haven't been in college for some time, but as I recall, John Locke actually had professed that the reason people allowed for government primarily was for security. And I'm asking you, with the surplus that you potentially have in your general fund, that you certainly look into that as you move into your budget discussions for additional motor officers and patrol officers. Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. We'll be addressing that a little later on the agenda.
That concludes public comments.
Thank you. We'll go to item 5A, ordinance 1014, second reading. Just need a motion.
Councilmembers Grunmeyer?
Yes.
Bash?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman? Yes. Mayor Newton?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item 5B, ordinance number 1015, second reading. Entertain a motion.
Okay. Councilmembers Grunmeyer?
Yes.
Bash? Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman? Yes. Mayor Newton?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item 6A, approval of mid-year amendments to the fiscal year 2016-2017 annual budgets. Gina? And you should be smiling because you did really good. Or you have good news, right?
Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. I am pleased to present the fiscal year 16-17 mid-year amendments to the annual budget. Before I begin, I want to bring to your attention some changes we made today regarding sales tax. I believe you have the revised staff report in backup. We were notified by our sales tax consultant, HDL, that trends from our auto sales, casual dining, and the county tax pool resulted in a projected increase for year-end of $315,000. This revision will be included in the following presentation. The original documents indicated a flat year-end estimate. Okay, here we go. That was a path to a healthy fund balance that zipped by. The presentation will include a brief overview of the status of the funds, a review of the changes to general fund revenues and expenditures, and last but not least, the impacts to fund balance for general fund. Okay. As you recall, the fiscal year 17 budget was adopted last June. Each year at this time, we ask departments to review revenues and expenditures for any adjustments. General fund revenues are proposed to increase by $845,970 due to projected increases in various revenue categories, and expenditures are proposed to increase by $183,743 due to increasing contracts, personnel reclassifications, and utility costs. Gas tax revenues will be decreasing by $23,562 from the budgeted amount. This is due to changes in the allocations by the state of California, as well as decreasing gas prices. The fund has sufficient fund balance to cover the reduction in current revenue. Accumulated fire equipment funds in the equipment replacement fund will be used to complete the diesel exhaust removal system at the Hillside Fire Station. The total cost for the final phase is $43,094. The water revenue fund revenues associated with the January 1st rate adjustments will increase by $480,000 and an additional $130,000 due to the adjustment in the negotiated sale of water to the Fontana Water Company. The total increase to water fund revenues is estimated to be $610,950. The water expenditures are projected to increase by $350,805. Primarily for adjustments to current CIP projects related to valve replacements, $150,000, and the meter SCADA project, $80,000. Overhead adjustments for water, $124,000, and sewer, $101,000, are increasing due to the recently updated cost allocation plan. The fund also includes $1,200 each in costs associated with the reclassed HR manager, human resources manager, and senior civil engineer. The reclassification of 2 maintenance worker 2s to sewer collection technicians have no net impact due to salary savings. Now we will briefly explore the detail of the proposed amendments to the fiscal year 17 budget. Sales tax. Here's a chart that highlights the change I mentioned earlier. Due to an increase in auto sales, casual dining, and countywide pool allocations, we are anticipating a $315,000 increase in revenue by year end. I want to note that auto sales are not recession-proof, and the city must continue to pursue a mix of revenue sources to maintain financial stability. General fund revenues. Motor vehicle license fee revenues are increasing by $21,000 for this by fiscal year end. Property tax revenues, I'll go one by one quickly to describe what's going on in each of those bar charts. The darker red is the adopted, and the golden color is year-end estimate. Property tax revenues are estimated based on the assessed value of taxable real property in the city. The city's assessed value information was made available by the county in October of 2016 after the budget was adopted. Based on actual actual tax receipts, an increase is anticipated from property taxes and residual tax increment monies allocated to the city from the former RDA tax increment monies. The total recommended mid-year budget adjustment is an increase of $62,514. Administrative overhead and transfers. The city has completed an overhead cost allocation plan to determine the amount of general fund administrative costs that should be allocated to enterprise and special revenue funds. The plan identified additional costs of $226,549 that should be reimbursed to the general fund. Franchise fees. Due to the better than anticipated receipts, the franchise fee related revenue will increase by a net of $23,740, primarily from the refuse franchise fees. Other revenues include various revenues, including impound fees, emergency services related revenue, and WRCOG program revenue. A net decrease of $2,619 is anticipated due to overestimated impound revenue and WRCOG program revenue. Other taxes category consists of public safety sales tax, business license tax, transient occupancy tax, and property transfer tax. Staff is recommending increasing this revenue category by $22,000 due to better than anticipated performance in transient occupancy tax, specifically that area, property transfer tax, and public safety sales tax. Community services and recreation. Category includes recreation, activities, fees, facilities, rental, We People program, and revenues related to special events. This revenue category is recommended to be increased by $35,000, primarily due to the increased donations to the Veterans Memorial and Senior Center. Interest income and lease includes the library lease and communication site leases or cell sites. The city is anticipating an additional $57,000 in communication site lease revenue as a result of new leases entered since the beginning of the fiscal year. And also, we've continued short-term leasing with the library for an overall increase of $72,000 in anticipated revenue. Did I say that correctly? Yes. Community development fees consist of planning, engineering, and building fees. These revenues are increasing by $110,000, largely to an increase in engineering-related fees. Fines and penalties are comprised of vehicle and municipal code-related violation fines. These revenues are anticipated to be less than budgeted by $4,700. Finally, intergovernmental revenues are decreasing by $36,000 due to a decrease in state reimbursement opportunities. At this time, the cost of pursuing the state funds is greater than the revenue. The city will continue to monitor and review for future opportunities. General fund expenditures. And this is the same, you will see in the gold, or in the red adopted figures, and then year-end estimate in gold. Starting with police protection, the increase of $174,000 in the Riverside County Sheriff's Department contract is from the following requests. DUI program. Due to the loss of the OTS traffic grant funding, the city is requesting $36,000 for a supplemental program that includes 6 DUI saturation patrols, 2 school zone traffic enforcement operations, and 2 pedestrian safety gridlock operations. Traffic enforcement deputy. The fiscal year 2016-17 general fund budget includes $100,000 for special traffic enforcement done on a sporadic basis. Additional enforcement is necessary to address rising traffic collisions and other violations in the city. Additional traffic enforcement can be accomplished by adding a dedicated traffic officer in a black and white patrol vehicle or a dedicated motor officer on a motorcycle. While staff is continuing to evaluate the best long-term deployment strategy for traffic enforcement and enhancement of police services, staff is recommending the addition of 1 dedicated traffic officer in a black and white patrol vehicle as a part of this mid-year budget adjustment. The estimated cost for the remaining 4 months of the fiscal year is $101,745. An additional community service officer. A community service officer, or CSO, are used to supplement the work of sworn officers. They can handle some priority 4 calls for service and traffic collision incidents. An additional CSO will help alleviate the burden on sworn deputies and would help reduce response times. The estimated cost to staff a CSO 2 position for the remaining 4 months is $37,000. Fire suppression. The CAL FIRE Riverside County Fire Department has provided an update on the contract after finalizing MOU negotiations with their employee associations. The revision results in $84,000 reduction in anticipated expenditures for the current year. Parks, Recreation, Building, and Recreation Services. The Parks, Building, and Recreation divisions are increasing by $117,000 due to the completion of the live scan room in the Sheriff Station for almost $12,000, and the increase in utilities resulting from the recently approved restructured water rates and reimbursement of water and sewer services for $106,000. The utilities are associated with parks, buildings, and medians. Now, the next 2 columns, non-departmental and administration, finance, and economic development, I'll do a little momentary edit. The non-departmental column actually includes a piece of economic development. The total net decrease for non-departmental is $79,000. It's primarily from the reimbursement from PERMA due to loss reductions estimates, and the $10,000 is for the increase in the historical resource consultant contract. And admin, finance, and economic development, that includes $6,900 for the city clerk for increase in city ordinances, the publishing of those ordinances, the additional training opportunities, conferences, and the city store inventory being replenished. It also includes $3,300 for the upgrade of the general fund portion upgrade of the human resources manager. That position is currently staffed by a human resources analyst who reports to the city manager. The incumbent has held this position since 2007 and has demonstrated success through professional training and in performing a wide range of human resources functions commensurate with the position of human resources manager. Staff is recommending that the city council approve a reclassification of this position from human resources analyst to human resources manager with a monthly salary range of $6,076 to $7,385. It is further recommended that the city council approve the attached, you have the attached job spec. The impact overall is $4,231 across all funds. Moving to animal control, no change there. In terms of We People and the Senior Citizens Program, there's a minor adjustment there of $68. That's a change from the previous report, and that is to go along with the recommendations from the grant program, the requirement to match exactly to the dollar. City Council and City Attorney, we're increasing the City Attorney's allocation by $25,000 for an increase in related services. And Public Works and Engineering, we have an adjustment there. Did I skip one? I did. I skipped code enforcement. On planning and building safety code compliance, $7,485 for the increase of the addition of a part-time code enforcement officer. The full-time position works a 36-hour weekly schedule, which is typically Monday through Thursday. This leaves the program unstaffed during weekends and vacations and/or sick leaves. In order to achieve effectiveness in the program by providing coverage during weekends, when plenty of code violations take place, it is necessary to add a part-time code enforcement officer who will cover weekends and vacations not exceeding 1,000 hours per fiscal year. Public Works and Engineering. This also includes a reclassification. This is the general fund portion of an associate civil engineer to a senior civil engineer. The current associate civil engineer has surpassed the level of duties outlined in the current job specification. The monthly salary range will be between $6,200 and $7,500, and the total fiscal impact will be $3,500 across all funds. And now we'll go to the estimated fund balance. On July 1st, 2016, our audited fund balance was $10,083,161. As the fiscal year 17 budget was adopted, you will recall that revenues were less than expenditures by $394,000. As mentioned, we are estimating revenues to increase by $845,970 and expenditures to increase by $183,743, resulting in an estimated increase in fund balance of $268,000, or a total fund balance of $10,351,180. The historical trend highlights the improvements of revenues and fund balance over the years and the current status of revenues to expenditures. The fund balance of $10.3 million represents 58% of the 16-17 general fund expenditures, which exceeds the 25% required for emergency reserve. This concludes the presentation. Staff is available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Gina. Good report. Robin, any questions of staff?
I don't have
Okay. Kevin, any questions?
No, not at this moment.
Ted?
Gina, I do, and I don't know if it's on your, in your chart, and under the dedicated, you had dedicated motor officer. Are we talking a motor officer or a traffic officer?
Yes, on the attachment A, I had written on there a dedicated motor officer, but in the staff report, it was dedicated traffic
Okay,
officer.
so no motorcycle?
No.
Okay, all right, Jessica. No other questions of staff?
Can I ask a question of Eric? May I? On the dedicated officer, the sworn officer.
Yes.
Will he also be able to do patrol activities?
Well, ideally for this position, we have deputies assigned to patrol. For this position, this specific position, we would assign them to cover traffic enforcement. They'd be available to assist in any way to their patrol deputies, but their primary duty would be to do traffic enforcement.
And then on the CSOs, can they also do patrol activity?
The best way to describe a CSO's position is they support our deputies. They are non-sworn members of the department, but they have a lot of training. They can do a lot of things. For example, when we have a person that we arrest and take into custody, they can handle the transport. If that person needs to go to the hospital, they can take them to the hospital. They can do some of our criminal investigations. They can also investigate our traffic collisions. So basically, the idea behind the CSO position in a supportive role is to keep our deputies available for the higher priority calls and incidents that happen throughout the city.
Is there a ratio of, or a recommendation that for every sworn deputy, you should have so many CSOs, or?
If there is,
Does that make sense how I'm trying to ask that?
I understand what you're saying. I just don't have that information.
But there is a ratio?
I don't know. I would have to look into that, and I can report back to you.
I mean, my thought, and I know not at this time, is one CSO officer enough?
For this point in time?
At this point in time.
I think this is a foothold.
As an addition. Right.
Yes, I think at this point, this is a foothold moving forward. We can look at those other options. I know this was discussed, these positions were discussed during our strategic planning.
Correct. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Cheryl, are there any cards?
Yes, Mayor. Jody Weber.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. When I made my public comments earlier, when I was planning them, I did not see this on the agenda, so now that I do see it, a couple of questions that I do have, though, is I certainly appreciate the additional traffic enforcement deputy that's been assigned, and I certainly appreciate consideration of the additional budget in light of the additional funds that we have available with the savings from fire. I guess my question is to the lieutenant, as you had just indicated, it does free up the officers for priority calls, but does it free up potentially for the added enforcement, or at least visual, impact of patrolling areas such as Vandermolen or other areas of the city that require that? Does that aid enforcement, I guess?
Okay to answer?
Sure. It's fine. Go ahead.
Okay, so since December, we've been working on a number of issues pertaining to the Norco Hills. We've worked with a number of stakeholders, the Norco Hills Golf Course, the City Manager's Office, Code Enforcement, our department. We've taken a number of steps. To answer your specific question, the deputies available for higher priority calls for service, those are calls from the public made into our dispatch center. It could be a fight, it could be a baby not breathing call, it could be a trespassing call, it could be a vandalism call. But basically, the CSO is handling the past crime calls, handling the traffic collisions, keeps those deputies available to respond to those specific calls. So if you have an issue in your neighborhood and it's a higher priority incident, then yes, it does keep those deputies available for those calls. But we just have to keep in mind that there are calls generated throughout the city. And so our staff, basically when our dispatch receives the call, they assign, based on the information they have, they're trained to assign a priority to it. Priority 1 is the highest priority call. That would be like a baby not breathing call, and that we would respond to. Or burglary in progress is a priority 1 call. We would get there as quickly and safely as we could. But so we're not locked into or having to contend with as many of those lower priority calls. The CSO is handling those, keeps those deputies available for those higher responses, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. In other words, you prioritize the call, and so you can send out the CSO or other, and then it frees you up for a patrol or other responses to priorities, so.
That's correct.
Okay, terrific. So that's why I'm enforcing, I do support this additional funding for that. The other thing that I do want to encourage, which does kind of go on the back of my public comments, is that in the staff report, you indicate here that you're also developing the best long-term deployment strategy for traffic enforcement and enhancement of police services. So I am also encouraging that this is just not a pro forma statement here, but that you're looking into that for your budget purposes. So I certainly appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jody.
There are no more cards on this item.
Thank you, Cheryl. Let's bring it back for any further discussion. Robin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to tell staff and Andy, thank you so much for a job well done. You've been listening to the residents and what your council has requested, I know, on several occasions. So good job, and I look forward to being able to increase services to the residents and appreciate your guys' hard work getting this done.
Ted?
Yeah, again, I'm going to reiterate what Robin said. We have met before with staff and gone through an individual and what we wanted. And the residents also said that, hey, we wanted more police protection, and it's true. And something that Eric probably knows better than I do, traffic accidents take a considerable time. SWITRS dictates how long each non-injury traffic accident should take to investigate. And I think it's 4 hours by the time start to done on some of these calls. So adding a traffic enforcement officer and adding a CSO that's traffic trained does eliminate that need to have that officer sit in there. If he's not doing traffic investigations all the time, it takes a long time to write those state-approved reports. My question, I guess, is, it's not a question, and it's my thought, is we're going to look at the County Board of Supervisors goes into negotiations with the Riverside Sheriff's Association. Those are the union representing the deputies. They'll go in next year for contract negotiations, from what I understand. We looked at a 7% increase last year. And I want the increase. Make sure that this is sustainable. This isn't just a 6-month deal, or we're going to stop it in July. We need to continue this and keep going on this. And so, as whatever we're doing for the average resident out there, a deputy position runs us around $250,000 a year, and I don't know, it's somewhere in there, Eric, right? Okay, and then that's with, and plus the car we're driving to. The CSO, $100,000 a year, $120,000 a year. So I want the residents to understand we want to make this sustainable. So when you look at these things and we want them, eventually we all got to pay for it. I'm glad that, Gina, your report is excellent. It shows that we're trying, but we still have a long way to go to make this where we want to have it. And I appreciate the code enforcement increase. I think we all know it. We see the building start on Friday. You see the guy moves in, and next thing you know, there's a whole building built there by Sunday, and no one knows. So I agree with what staff has recommended here. Thank you.
Thanks, Ted. A few comments. Could you go back to your graph that you had on the general fund balance? It was the very last item you had. But I guess while I'm doing that, I also wanted to comment on, under like the city clerk item, that the training allocation, that I think continuing education for all our staff is extremely important, and that we are also recognizing the work and the expertise of certain staff members, that is also looking down the road for us, that someday some of us are going to retire, and who takes over from that? And I think with continuing education and then promoting from within, that also is a good foundation. The other item I had, and I know along with the sheriff's increases, that we're going to see some changes in the CAL FIRE increases, that personally, all you guys deserve raises. And any idea how that's moving forward and how that's going to impact us in the future?
A little bit of an idea. So those initial figures were included in this year's cost estimate, and that's the reduction in what's proposed, is that it was budgeted from July 1st through the entire fiscal year. The plan that's on the table right now, or the deal that's on the table, it goes back to January 1st. So if there is a raise, it would be effective for 6 months of the fiscal year, not 12. Thus, the $84,000 reduction in what the city's already adopted has our budget for this fiscal.
Okay.
Answer the question. You're paying for 6 months instead of 12.
Right, so the 84 could go back real fast. Is
Not
that
in this current
somewhat the
fiscal
way
year,
I'm
no.
understanding
The estimates
that?
that came in include the revised numbers that just came in from headquarters, put the raised numbers into effect.
Okay.
Because it's not for the 12 months, it's only for the 6. It's $84,000 less than what you budgeted, and that is with the raises, if it's ratified by the membership. So, not even to the membership yet.
Okay.
Still
So the increase we'll look at after July?
That Exhibit A was already given last year as well, and I think it'll still be on track for what was already estimated.
Okay. Got it. Thanks, Chief. That one. Well, yeah, all I wanted to do was, looking back at 2012, and Kevin, you know this the best, that in the dire straits that we were in, how with Andy's leadership and council at the time, how we've been able to slowly increase from $2 million to $10 million. And that I have this gut feeling that, without getting into a dissertation on central banking and interest rates, that, let's not go crazy, that $10 million could go very, very fast. So I think if we go in these smaller steps to increase public safety and continuing education and what we need for water, sewer funds, et cetera, that will help sustain us in the longer term. But Gina, good job. Andy, good job. Jump in.
I'm glad you pulled this up. I was looking at that too. You know, it's that exhibits the hole that we dug out of, but that's a collective effort. That is Andy, that is Brian, that is EDAC, that is the volunteers, that is Roger, that is everybody who, I mean, that's Hobby Lobby, Tractor Supply, bringing back the auto mall, that kind of stuff. And so that to me is the most amazing thing. That is the bottom line right there. In the private sector, you can make out all kinds of reports and do this and do that, but the truth is, it usually is to hide the truth, and that is the truth for the city of Norco, and I'm very impressed with that. But that said, I have some concerns. I'm concerned about the PERS stuff we heard about the other day. That is going to be a big hit for us that they're talking about, and that's coming. I personally would love to get another officer. I'm also very concerned about succession training, getting that going, and I know Andy and I, we've talked about that. The thing that I think that, in my opinion, is this is a fabulous report, but we have to double down now. We've worked really, really hard to get certain businesses here. I don't think people realize that a town our size, to pull in some of the businesses we pulled in, just doesn't happen. And it's really good that Berwyn has a lasso, because he would just pull them in like that. But I think that doubling down, I think that one of the things Andy and I talked about a few weeks ago is we need to begin to pinpoint the kind of business that we bring into the city, the high sales tax numbers, and continue to diversify. Probably the most telling story behind that dip is that we diversified for the first time in the history of Norco. And I think that we need to really, and actually this was Andy's suggestion to me, was what businesses can we go after in the land that we have left that are high dollar sales tax numbers? And I think that maybe the next meeting or someplace, or Andy, you come up with a list, or staff, however you want to do it, but I think we need to follow through with that suggestion. Right now we're riding a crest of a pretty good economy, but as most people know, our costs are fixed, but our income isn't. In the private sector, you can change your costs, But in the public sector, you have fixed costs that no matter if you're going up or you're going down, it's very difficult to change them. And so I think that Andy, if you can, if you have an idea, I know you're busy, but what businesses should we be going after right now that will bring us the most sales tax revenue? And so that's all I'd say. Great job, everybody. I mean, that's the proof in the pudding, and that's staff. Thank you. EDAC, thank you. I mean, you guys had a big hand in that too. So that's all I have to say, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Once again, thank you, staff, and all our commissions. I'll go ahead and entertain a motion.
Make a motion to adopt resolution number 2017-07.
Councilmembers Grunmeyer, Bash, Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman, Mayor Newton.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item 6B, discussion regarding installation of a three-way stop at the intersection of Hillside Avenue and 2nd Street. Chad, would you like to give this report?
I would love to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. This item was brought forth out of a request from the public and members of the council regarding safety concerns related to Hillside Drive, related to excessive speeding, going both north and south in relation to specifically at 2nd Street. Obviously, that's the high school area. High school, junior high? High school, right? High school. And the fact that we only currently have a stop sign at the end of 2nd Street abutting Hillside, and oncoming traffic going north and south. There's also a blind spot when you're looking south. You can't see oncoming traffic because the trees there, etc. So due to the request and the concerns, we engaged RKA and our city engineer, Dominic Milano, to conduct a traffic study regarding that intersection. Dominic is here today to answer any questions you have regarding the study. The drawing you see here is the conceptual, how it would be done. The study did indicate that it did justify putting in a three-way stop, and this is the rendering as far as how we would accomplish that. The actual work would be done internally. We would use our existing striping company to use their stencils and do the stop legends and stop and words, and staff internally would also put in the stop signs, posts, etc., and any other items that we need to adjust. So it would be done at the most minimal cost as we can. It does require about a 60-day notification period where we highlight the changes that are occurring, and then we also continue to highlight those once they're there, just to make sure that drivers understand that a change has been made here and to adjust their driving patterns accordingly. At this time, the cost on that has been estimated to be just about $10,000, a little bit under that. And again, so we would, if it's the council's direction to move forward on this, we could probably get this done and technically officially completed certainly by June. But we would have it up in place within 60 days, and then we have another 60 days after that where we keep having warning signals up to advise people there is something here that wasn't there before, and so that again we avoid any potential issues of folks not paying attention. We'd be happy to answer any questions you may have regarding this topic.
Thank you, Chad. Any questions of staff? Robin?
Chad, real quick, under number 7 on recommendations, it recommends that the tree at the southwest corner be removed. So if we approve the installation of the stop signs, is that automatically going to happen? And would city staff take care of that?
It would happen as part of the overall improvement.
Okay.
We would use our contractor, WCA, to remove the tree.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Kevin?
No comments. I'm 100% in favor of this. I think we've all heard about it from residents, and good job.
Yeah, I'm glad you're looking at this. I approached this when I was on Streets and Trails many years ago, and so I'm glad it's happening. A couple of questions. The traffic calming islands that are there, or that are supposed to be there. Funny story, I showed these to Chad, I think when you first started, told you to go look at them, and you did the same thing, you chuckled. Are they staying?
At this time, they're not planned to be removed.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the speed limit will still be 25, correct?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
I swear when I first thought those, I thought it was a high school project. Not kidding. with this, looking at some further mitigation, it's either Detail B, which is channelized intersection, or Detail E, a divisional island. Would you have any recommendation, pro or con, to also add that? Would that further mitigate some of the impacts? Evening, Dominic.
The channelizing, putting a median there would certainly help, and basically it'll call attention that you got a stop sign and gives you, it channels you. Striping generally does not, you just ride over the stripes. So if you would like, yes, the raised median channelization would be probably appropriate.
And would channelization be better than divisional?
Yes.
Okay. Any other, I would support that, going with channelized. Does anyone else think there would be any impact to that, Ted?
I'm just thinking of people pulling a horse trailer through that. It's going to make it a tough left turn, coming off a hillside, going down 2nd Street with the divisional island in there. Okay. And that's my concern, is that already has, it's 25, you coming down, it's just, curvy road, but now you're asking them to make sure in some of our larger goosenecks, you're going to clip the back end. I think he's going to be spending more time fixing the stop sign in the center then, but that's just my opinion. Thanks.
Okay.
One of the things to consider is, again, we could take a tempered approach where we can do the initial improvement. We can always come back and do that secondary improvement if we feel there are conditions occurring that warrant it.
And I'm fine with it either way. I was just thinking, if we're going to do it, would that be a benefit to do that type of island at this time?
I guess for me, it's just more of whether or not it's unknown how much of a benefit it would provide versus, not putting it in.
So a wait-and-see position is...
That's my recommendation.
You're more comfortable with...
Because we always know we can come back and add it versus...
Certainly. Okay. That's all I had.
Here,
go ahead, Ted.
And remembering my traffic studies, if a channel island, rather than raising the curb, we could also approach it with delineators and that type of things, that if we're trying to separate it, correct? As a way, rather than raising the curb?
Yeah, you certainly can do it with some extremely raised pavement markers. The ones that are 6 or 8 inch ones, the very tall ones, or you can certainly do it with some vertical delineations, very similar to what we have on Hamner over by Silver Lakes. There's a number of different ways you can do that. And initially, back to your other islands, the traffic calming islands that were installed 15 years ago or something like that, there was actually delineators that were supposed to have been installed with those islands too. They were not installed, or were taken out actually because the horses got scared as they were walking by them. And so the fact of trying to neck stuff down at that location went away. So it doesn't work anymore.
Ed, would you want to see like some truncated domes there? Okay. All right.
If push comes to shove,
okay. Then I'll entertain a recommendation. Or are there any
I have
cards?
a card.
I'm sorry.
Yes, Scott DeRosa.
Scott.
Good evening again, Mayor and City Council. First, I want to say thank you for addressing this situation. I know I did speak about it at one of the past council meetings. I'm really excited to see this because for the last 3 years, I frequent that intersection when dropping off my high school kids. And it is very dangerous, and the stop sign is definitely needed on both sides to make that a three-way stop. Drivers tend to be very courteous in trying to allow others to get in and make their left-hand turns, whether from hillside to Second or from Second onto hillside. The left-hand turn's the tricky one, and trying to find out when you can squeeze in as fast as you can and gun your car and not get sideswiped. So I am happy to see this is happening. My 2 cents worth with regards to the discussion of whether you should have a raised median, I really don't think it's necessary. I'm there every day, and people will stop and be courteous and whatnot. If there is a stop sign, I'm sure, then we won't have to worry about the people passing on the right-hand side on Hillside trying to get ahead that didn't want to wait in line behind the other drivers that are being courteous, allowing other people to turn. So that's basically it. I just want to say thank you. I'm welcoming this opportunity or this change here, and I don't think you need that center medium. It's unnecessarily spent money.
Thank you, Scott.
All right, thank you.
There are no more cards on this item.
Thank you, Cheryl. Now I'll entertain a motion.
Council members Grunmeyer? Yes. Bash? Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman? Mayor Newton?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item 6C, discussion regarding implementation of an automated phone notification system. Chad?
Thank you. This item was a joint item that was put together between Public Works and the Finance Department. One of the things we look at throughout our programs is look for cost efficiencies that we can implement. And this is one of the areas that I focused in on, in that it does have a big impact on our Public Works staff in trying to facilitate the notifications that the Finance Department tries to give out to our customers. In this regards, we have the Finance Department has a process to where they notify customers for your bill, and they give it a first notice, you get a second notice, then you get your shut-off notice. Those first 2 notices are traditionally mailed out. The third notice for several years now has been hand-delivered to those customers by Public Works staff. That takes up quite a bit of time for us. We do anywhere from 400 to 500 of those a month. And that means we're not doing what we should be doing in relation to our Public Works duties and maintaining the trails, the streets, graffiti, etc. So one of the things that I discussed with the Finance Department and got their buy-off and support on was implementing what has commonly been done now in many agencies, including others I have worked with, is doing the automated phone messaging system. It is one that basically, for all intents and purposes for us, is going to be almost free because we already have an existing vendor that we use their services, and this is a service that they provide. And luckily for our current contract that was discussed and we would sign, is we get actually 500 free notifications a month, whether that is by phone or email. This system is broad. It can give text messages, it can give phone messages, it can do email. So it has a lot of capabilities. Right now we're focusing on primarily notifying folks by phone. So what they would do in this process, instead of us hand delivering a letter that informs them that their bill, it needs to be paid in X number of days, otherwise we shut them off, is they would get a phone message. And it's an automated system. The phone messages are done after 5 or 6 o'clock. We can set the time we want to do it. My recommendation is normally after 6 o'clock so people are home. Even though a lot of the phones that are out there that folks might have on file commonly are cell phones. But again, our goal is simply it's an automated dialing system that we can set. It'll be set to have 2 phone calls. And so we make a 1 attempt. If no one answered, we do a second attempt an hour later. And basically the system actually records when we tried to make phone calls. So as the customers come in, they say, well, I never got a phone call. Staff can simply look it up and say, well, we called it 606 and we called it 607 or 707. And so we made the attempt and here's the number that we called. And that's when they go, well, I just wasn't home. Or common, they say, well, that's not my number. Well, that's the time we say, okay, well, how about we get your updated information, we'll update your account, and the next time you'll definitely get that phone call. So it's a good system in that I can say from experience it works. It also helps improve our records because it is the obligation of the customers to give us their current updated information. Despite what some may think, we don't have the magic ball that gives us all their information when they change it. So this is a good process. It's very effective. And so that's the goal in this aspect. It will certainly save Public Works time tremendously. We estimated that we have about 33 maintenance hours a month that we do this work. So that saves us over almost 400 hours a year, again, that we can do other stuff. So and that translates to a financial benefit for us, and that we're doing work that otherwise we aren't doing. So for Public Works perspective, we're very much support of this change. We wanted to bring this forth to let you know kind of what was being done and why, and also how we would implement it. The biggest part of this is getting the information out and providing that information to the customers that a change is occurring. So what we, Finance Department has come up with is they developed a flyer that's attached in your agenda that notifies the customers of what change is coming and how it's going to be done and what this means. This will be provided in the utility bill for one complete cycle. And then in addition, when we go out during that same period and actually we'll continue to hand deliver shut-off notices to customers, they will also get a copy of this, so they get it directly. Because commonly, those are our repeat customers anyway. We want to get their attention. So if there is a change in their phone number that we don't have, we hope that they will contact us and so that they can tell us, hey, my number is different here. I want to make sure I get this notice. Because to be honest, some of our customers use these notices as a reminder about their bill, and then they come and pay it. So, but we feel we have a good process to make sure we get good communication to the public that a change is occurring, and that hopefully they will respond accordingly and check to make sure that we have their up-to-date information. I'll be happy to entertain any comments from Gina as far as benefits for her staff in this. I do know they would save certainly on the printing and preparing of notices. Now, we wouldn't have to do that. So that's a big help I think for finance.
I can say that on our heavy days, it is a significant amount of time that is taken for staff to communicate to those that are late on their bills. And there's follow-up phone calls, actually calling directly before shut-off. So we can use this process throughout our processes. And one minor note on here, being kind of an EOC person myself, is it's a reverse 911 system as well. So we can actually take all those phone numbers as we accumulate them and send out an emergency notice if need be. So it's several good purposes there.
Thank you, Gina. Chad? Questions of staff? Kevin?
I have some reservations about this, only because prior to you coming, Public Works sometimes didn't quite return calls, and my concerns are really about seniors. And they get sick, and I've been to a lot of seniors' houses where you see all their mail stacked up, and they've been in the hospital for 3 weeks. There's nobody really looking after them. The grandson's a deadbeat living in the house, and he doesn't know to open a bill if it would save his life. And I guess my concern is that by having a real person come there, there's a way for them to connect and to say, oh, what do I do? And so I guess I really like the idea of the 911. That's good, the reverse and keeping things up to date. But seniors have a lot of fear, and so they get these things, and I'm worried that they may not be able to pick up the phone and call. I want to really feel assured that Public Works has gone to a whole new level returning people's calls if people have questions, or they have a way to say, you know what, I need to get a ride, or I need to get over there to pay my bill. I like the idea that, and I'm really just talking about the seniors, I like the idea that somebody knocks on their door and makes sure that they're there, that they're okay. Because we have had incidents in the past where the person delivering these notices says, hey, you're not looking so good. And then there's just the part of me that feels like we're becoming so automated that we're just not reaching out. And we're a small town, and I like that idea. So will they be able to call? Will they be able to, how do we maybe find a happy medium, especially I'm really referring to the seniors. You see what I mean? I get where you're coming from, but we're a public service. And
just to clarify, though, we don't knock on the door. This is a door hanger.
Yeah, no, I know how it works. I know how it works. I totally get that. And it's just there it is, and they go through the front door. And usually seniors go through their front doors because the ramps are there and it's the easiest access. So if they do have questions, can we assure them that somebody will pick up the phone, a human being, and say, hey, I'm 3 days late. What do I do?
I believe Jeannie can speak as far as customer service. I mean, we always have somebody there
Well, there's a huge improvement. I mean, that's the thing. I just want to, there needs to be that added element where they can talk to a human being and not have to come down here. That's important to me.
We are definitely still at the utility billing service number, and anybody at any time can call that number, and there'll be somebody there to, within office hours, to assist them in paying their bill.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Gina, on that line, how many low-income seniors? My mic's on. Turn it up, Pat. Okay. How many low-income seniors do we have on our water billing where?
I want to say around 80, between 80 and 100, and we can.
Would there be any way to flag that?
Yes.
Yeah, I like that.
Yes, we can flag them.
Okay. And that wouldn't skew your...
No, and I can actually almost confidently tell you that very few of them are late on their bills.
Got it. Right. Ted?
Well, I like the fact that we're saving time. There's 400 hours a year in maintenance worker time that they do need to be out instead of on the door. Gina, answer me this question. When you send out the first and second notices that they're delinquent, those notices are a different color, correct? Are they red?
They're pink.
They're pink. So they pretty much, it's not like your normal bill. So, and generally speaking, when people get that off-colored notice, they know that they're delinquent. I mean, that's traditionally what we've done. So by the time the third one comes, they should have expected it. And I applaud you for doing this because we have a very limited public works staff, and they need to be fixing water lines and fixing trails. And you know what? People need to take responsibility, and I'm glad you have the senior group there. So, yeah, and as long as you're taking care of the seniors on your thing, that's good. Thank you.
Robin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chad answered one of my questions. I was wondering how many of these 500 people are on the list every month, and I kind of got a gist of that, so thank you for that. I did have a question on the message. Is it when you make the first attempt, does it leave a message, like an automated message? This is the city of Norco, we're attempting to collect a bill or whatever. So it won't just ring and not leave a message?
No, it will leave a message.
Okay, and they'll get at least 2 of those messages if they don't answer.
If they tries, and if somebody picks up, whether it's a voicemail, a machine, or a person, it will leave a message or attempt to leave a message. If the person just hangs up real quick because they think it's a bad message, it will just note that somebody picked up, but it won't call again at 7 o'clock because somebody tried to pick up.
Oh, okay.
And but it notes that in the system that somebody physically picked up the phone, or either an automated system picked it up or a body picked it up. That's what basically it can tell you is that it was picked up. But it won't automatically call again 2 hours later or an hour later.
Okay. All right. No, I think it's a great idea, and we're saving staff time, and it says in the staff report an impact of potentially $100 a year to implement the system. So I think it's a great deal for us.
Cheryl, any cards?
No cards.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Council members Grunmeyer?
Yes.
Bash? Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman? Yes. Mayor Newton?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item 6D, discussion regarding traffic signal at 6th Street and California Avenue.
Good evening, Council. Okay, this item here was brought back a request by City Council. If you recall, just give back some history, back in April and May, the City Council approved a number of traffic calming measures related to North Avenue, California, Crestview, et cetera, that staff has implemented back in May time and has finished up for the most part, except for some minor things on North Avenue. One of these changes was a signalization change at California and 6th. The idea behind this is 6th Street, 6th Street approaching California, turning left, basically going north, was a protected left turn. The idea was, or the concern was, is that folks that were getting at that intersection were staggering up, and when they see the red arrow, they were bypassing it, just going up to Crestview and adding traffic, number of vehicles onto Crestview. The idea behind changing that to a passive protective signal, where you have initially a green arrow and then it changes to a green ball to allow traffic to go ahead and turn left when it's a safe condition, allows cars to not want to bypass California and go up to Crestview because they know they can eventually wait for a clearance and move on rather than wait for a red light to change. That implementation was done in May, and we've been operating since that time in that format. Concerns have been raised over the last year as it's been in operation that there's been a number of accidents that have occurred at that intersection, and it's directly related to the change in that signal. I know that the Sheriff's Department has provided information regarding accidents. There have been 3 accidents that we know of that had reports, and we believe there are been some that have been not reported to police. They were taken care of by individual parties. What's before you today is that discussion is whether or not the council feels it's appropriate to leave the existing signal in place. Again, at the cost, when we put that in, was about $8,000, or change it back to its original condition, which is a protected left turn, which would cost approximately about $6,000 to have our consultants put that back in place. At this time, I welcome any questions you might have or any input that maybe the sheriffs might have regarding the condition at that intersection.
Eric, do you want to add anything at this time, or see if there's any questions?
I can answer the questions if any council has questions.
Ted?
Chad, January, Albert, Grover, and Associates. They did a complete study on everything, traffic study, correct? Mm-hmm. Give us traffic counts.
I believe so, yes.
Everything that's right here, everything was done in this report you guys gave us. Since that time, has there been any new traffic reports done on the number of trips and the volume of cars that are on Crestview and now that it was done? The reason we changed that signal, has those numbers, or has there been any study to indicate new numbers or if it was effective?
There hasn't been an official study done. We have done indirect analysis of Crestview using our feedback, dynamic feedback signs, speed signs we have 2 that are mobile. We placed them on Crestview at residents' request because of still excessive speeds on Crestview. Those do have counts. I don't know how reliable they are because of depending how you position them. Sometimes you're getting double counts from vehicles going both directions. We mainly were using at the time to verify what the speeds were of those vehicles, and those results were showing that the speeds have been reduced because we did have the speeds before and after. But for counts, I would say we don't have a definitive or accurate number to say whether it has been increased or has changed at all.
So we have no proof that it has been effective or hasn't been effective?
Not yet. No, we haven't done a follow-up study. Yes.
Okay. And what did we pay, do you know offhand, for the Albert Grover and Associates report?
I don't recall what we paid at the time.
Give me a ballpark. Andy, you remember what we paid for? I don't remember.
No.
Okay, but it was more than $6,000, what you're saying, probably for that.
Probably.
Yeah, okay. And now my question to Eric. Eric, 3 accidents, better. Do you know what the probable cause for those accidents were?
Yes, so we had, when I ran this was back on, I believe, February 15th, or I'm sorry, back a couple of weeks ago, so there may be something additional to this, but the 3 accidents I looked at were all left turn violations for vehicles traveling east. They caused the collision.
So they violated?
So basically, they made a left turn in front of oncoming vehicle.
Okay, so their driver fault?
Yes.
Okay, all right. That's it, thank you.
Kevin?
So I had one weekend where I had 3 people call me about a crash, and I've had other people, there's the person who lives on the corner says there's a lot of crashes. I'm not sure what to do here, but I know there's been more than that, and I don't know if it's because people are still used to the old system or not paying attention, or, I mean, would it help us to go back to the other version? I mean, I know there's more accidents than that.
Yes, and what typically happens is some people that are involved in collisions, they will call us or they don't call us, and they exchange information amongst themselves. So it's not always reported to us, and it does not always end up in an official collision report. So I like when we ran this, I said we did have 3, and there was 1 pending that we didn't have all the information on, so it'd probably be 4 at this point without running the numbers again. But I think the concern is it's a learned behavior, it's driver error. So whether you change it or not, you're subject to driver error. And I'm not sure what the correct answer would be in this case. Whether left independent turn arrow so that no oncoming traffic is going, and it's just a green left arrow, so they make their left turn to east onto northbound California. Once that arrow diminishes, goes yellow, goes red, there's no traffic moving. So there is no green ball, so that what happens is, and Chad, you could correct me if this is wrong, the way it works now is that left turn arrow diminishes, but it goes to a green ball. And that means it's on you to monitor oncoming traffic. But what I think happens is people don't realize or aren't looking. Either way, it's driver error. So ultimately, it's your decision on how you think it would go.
Yeah, I think that's the exact problem, is that people are used to that left-hand arrow, and then it turns green, and they think they have the right-of-way.
That's correct.
Yeah. So my concern is if somebody gets killed, gets T-boned, and you get a bunch of them, I'm not sure what to do with this situation. I'm the one that brought it forward, but will it help to just keep it a green left arrow? And does it really slow down? I'm not sure why that would slow down traffic to have an arrow and then have it green, unless it's stopping people from making the left-hand turn onto California. Why would it slow down traffic on Crestview and on California?
Well, as far as it doesn't slow down traffic,
that's the stat you have, though.
The number, in theory, it was intended to reduce the number of vehicles that were going onto Crestview rather than because they couldn't turn left on California. Again, it was an assumption that if we made this change, it may attract more vehicles to wait in the turning lane because they could turn once it was clear. And the reality is, in my opinion, is that it's entirely driver error. I mean, on 2 different situations. It's folks going too fast down 6th Street, and also folks making left turn, just not judging it correctly because of the speeds of people coming on 6th, and not realizing they can't make that turn safely enough in a green ball situation. So unfortunately, I don't have information as far as a follow-up study to show whether or not our original thoughts as far as reducing the number of cars on Crestview is actually valid or it actually occurred. There could be no change. I don't have that information. It was just a recommendation as a possibility of a traffic calming in that, and how to reduce potentially. It's just we have no way to prove it at this point. We wouldn't be able to do that unless we purposely did a study and left the lights in that condition at this time so we could do the study.
So maybe monitor it at the moment and just kind of see what happens?
Again, if the council's interested in finding out whether or not it was effective in reducing the number of vehicles from based off of the previous study, yes. If you want that information, we'd have to leave it in place and then conduct a proper study on that area to find out is traffic being reduced.
That's all I have, Mr. Mayor, for the moment.
Rob?
I don't know if this question would be for Chad or Eric. When there's a signalization change, typically how long does it take for people to adjust to that given change? Is there like a study that says, oh, it's going to take them 3 months or 6 months, or?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question.
No, I just feel like people are creatures of habit and they don't pay attention. And so, I'd like to see a little more information, because I feel like even if we change it back, people that have gotten used to the signal the way it is are going to create accidents. So I think we're kind of darned if we do, darned if we don't at this particular juncture. And so our intention was to decrease the volume of traffic on Crestview. And without having that information, I just think we're just kind of making a decision without all the information that we need to have to make a good decision for that particular intersection. So I would prefer to have more information before a final decision is made.
Cheryl, any cards?
No cards.
Okay. I agree with Robin on this, that it's difficult to make a decision one way or the other without all the information. My recommendation would be to have staff bring back a cost of what a scaled down traffic survey would cost us. Because I think what's the most important, not only like we've talked about previously, the accidents and the safety issues, but is it really reducing the traffic trips on Crestview and for those residents?
One of the things we can do without hiring a consultant to do it is, again, we can use our dynamic feedback signs and place them in a proper position so we're only single counting traffic, and that can be done. So because we've already purchased that equipment, council's authorized us to have that, and we've been using it all over the city. We could just now do a focused purpose is not only to verify speeds, but also get the counts.
What do we pay for those signs again?
Each of the signs is about $4,000.
We'd be better off buying an additional sign. It'd be less than a traffic survey.
Well, again, it depends on the accuracy of the equipment. So like I said, it's, you get a lot of engineered value of getting a professional engineer giving you their opinion about what the data is telling you. So again,
but we also get some bang for our buck with those signs.
Again, and it's meant to be for what we use it for. It does give us data that we share with the Sheriff's Department regarding the speeds, regarding the traffic counts, so that they can do focused enforcement in the areas as we point out and use these on different streets. So it is meaningful data that we're obtaining. We mainly been using it for traffic enforcement purposes, but again, in this case, it can, and we can collect that data to tell you how many cars that we're counting in a certain period to match what the time period and the counts were done in the original study.
And then correlate that back to that study.
Right.
Dominic, you wanted to add anything? Okay. Go ahead, Ted.
Mayor, I received some communications from a resident who lives on California. She couldn't be here tonight. And his concern, he's lived on California for a long time. He actually liked the old way. And here's something to think about. And this is why I wanted to know what the traffic counts were and what we have done if we're effective. His thing is that when it was a protected left turn, there was more of a gap in the traffic, because that way give them a chance to get in and out of their driveways on California. I understand his point. But this goes back to my initial thing, is we don't have the numbers, and that's what we need, the numbers. And so I know that they want to provide direction for staff, as we've already spent $8,950 to change the light. Now it's going to cost us another $5,600 to change it back. Before we start spending a lot of money, let's get numbers, in my feeling, to see before we go any further. And that's why I said we don't have the numbers. But I understand the people in California, they need a break. And this is what continues, that whole traffic study along north in California, it needs to be fixed. And those residents deserve that. So I'll speak for them since they're not here. Thank you.
Just FYI, since the mayor had asked, we can actually do traffic counters out there about $400 or $500, and then use that to that data and internally just compare it to the other report.
Okay. Ted, do you want to make a recommendation?
Yeah, I want to recommend that we do a traffic count on California. Will that traffic count also give us the speeds? Or not, Dominic? Just number count? Okay, well, we can play with your little toys,
signs will be out there, yeah.
Put those on.
That number gives counts both on Crestview
and California, yes. Let's see that's my recommendation. Let's see what we do before we make a decision. Thank you.
Councilmembers Grunmeyer. Yes. Bash. Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman. Yes. Mayor Newton.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay. Would any... Okay, let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break and reconvene at 8:45. I'll reconvene the meeting. Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman will be sitting out of this discussion meeting or item since he is a resident of LMD4. And certainly don't want to perceive any conflict of interest. So we'll move to item 6E. Brian, good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Tonight we're going to be, if I can get this to work. We're going to be discussing the fund balance in LMD number 4. This last year in July, the City Council adopted the Landscape Maintenance District number 4 budget for fiscal year 16-17. As directed by the Council, we reimbursed $440,277 in the previous based on previous electrical charges to LMD number 4 fund balance from the Water Fund. Based on the direction from Council, staff then conducted a meeting October 25th with residents of LMD number 4 to discuss various options for using the additional fund balance created by the correction. The following recommendations were discussed and recommended through the meeting with the property owners. Number 1 was a cash refund to current property owners. 2, provide a one-time reduction of assessment as part of fiscal year 2017-2018. Utilize fund balance for trail fence replacement. Reduce fiscal year 2017-18 assessment by half, 50%, and utilize $220,138, which is half, for trail fence replacement. Through option number 1, I believe there were 21 residents who looked at this out of the 40 who attended the meeting, who felt that this was their preference in receiving this particular cash refund versus leaving it as part of the fund balance or reducing the assessment or looking at the other options. Under the Streets and Highway Code, any fund balance is required to be carried over for future use in future years for the improvements that benefit the district or reduce the assessment. There is no provision, I just want to make a note of that, to issue cash refunds to current or past property owners. The fund balance belongs to the district, not individual property owners. However, this is an option that the majority of the residents who attended the community meeting preferred. And if the City Council determines that a cash refund is warranted, staff recommends the following process be followed based on a consultation with Wildan Financial Services. 1, funding to be provided only to current property owners based on the amount substantiated by the property owners and approved through the city approving claiming process. 2, city staff working with Wildan Financial Services will identify and notify affected property owners who could be eligible for a refund. 3, each claimant will be required to complete a claim form and provide necessary documentation required by Wildan Financial Services in order to determine eligibility for refund and the amount that is to be refunded. 4, upon review of the verification of required submittal by Wildan Financial Services, the city will approve the claim and process and issuance of a refund check. The cost of Wildan Financial Services consulting estimate is not to exceed $12,500, and as an administrative charge will be charged to LMD number 4 as a one-time expense. The city will issue a 1099 to any property owner that receives a refund of $600 or more based on IRS laws. Option 2 was a one-time reduction. This is consistent with the provisions of the Streets and Highway Code. The City Council can authorize the city engineer to provide a credit of $820 to all affected parcels in the district as part of this 2017-2018 Landscape Maintenance District budget. Option 3, trail fence replacement project. This is consistent with the provisions of the Street and Highway Code. The City Council can authorize the city engineer to provide a credit of $820 to all affected parcels within the district as part of the 2017-18 assessment levies, accelerating the already existing trail fence replacement program. Some of the facts to be thought about or consider is that currently $75,000 is budgeted annually for trail fence replacement within the district. It will take approximately 9 years to replace the 49,376 linear feet of remaining existing fencing within the assessment district as it stands today. If the full $820 credit was applied to the trail fence replacement, the improvement would be accomplished during fiscal year 17-18, providing there is existing sufficient funds in the fund balance to replace the remaining trail fencing within the district. This action would reduce the future assessment for trail replacement. Consistent for option 4, which was a 50% going towards trail fencing, 50% going towards a one-time reduction. This is also consistent with provisions of the Streets and Highway Code, and the City Council can authorize the city engineer to provide a credit of $820 to all affected parcels within the district, or as determined by City Council. Through this meeting and the various discussions we've had, the city engineer and staff are starting to prepare for our annual spring meeting with the districts and preparing for the upcoming fiscal year budget 17-18 for the districts. Based on the decision tonight, we will move forward with that recommendation or from that direction from the council to implement that as part of the process for that upcoming budget. We're asking staff to provide direction regarding how and how much, which option is the preferred option by the council for us to do that. I do want to note that the district, the administrators of the district are the city council. They are the ones who govern the budget. So your decision is the direction that we take based on that. And so with that, both myself, Andy, and Dominic are here to answer any questions that you might have related to the report and the options. And with that, I'll conclude my comments.
Thank you, Brian. Kevin?
I don't really have any questions right now. I'll have some comments for later, but we'll see what the people say.
Robin? Well, I do. On option 1, on the cash refund, that the way it's being proposed right now would only be the current property owners, correct?
Well, yes, but that's who would file the claims that are present right now.
Okay. And making the assumption there would be additional monies that, let's say in 2012, I lived in LMD4 and I was assessed and I sold my house and I moved on, okay? That contribution on my part, where would those funds go?
It would be part of the fund balance. They would remain.
So those funds would remain in LMD4?
That's correct.
Fund balance.
And John may be able to answer this. I don't know that it would preclude someone who lived there to not file a claim. We would have to verify it, I guess. That possibility exists.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what that meant, but just so there's no confusion, that the claim filed by the current property owner would be for monies the current property owner actually paid.
Right, that I understand. But if I was a resident, let's say in 2012, okay, just for that 1 year.
You know,
And I contributed. I was assessed.
Yeah, the approach by Wildan has suggested that it's only something which is available for current property owners, and that notwithstanding when you live there in the past, that you're not entitled to a refund.
And if that was to be the case, then that's what I wanted to make sure. Those monies would go or remain in the fund.
Yes, they have to remain in. They belong to, and that's the key here, is the way the way the statute reads is they belong to the assessment district. So that fund balance belongs to the district, and it only can be used for improvements to the district or reducing the levy.
And
that's the only question I have right now.
And again, I'll reiterate the earlier comments that there really isn't any statutory authority to write anybody a check. There's no absolute prohibition, but there is no legal authority to do that.
I just want to keep it questions to staff right now. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question? In option number 1, it talks about only to Wildan, recommended only to current property owners. Why was that the case? Was it because of administrative costs of searching people, or
I think it's Wildan's.
What was the reason?
I think it's Wildan's view of what the law will allow to happen. That the money, no matter how you cut it, belongs to the district. And so this is functionally the equivalent of providing a reduction in future assessments. It's just you're doing it in cash now to the people who would otherwise pay the future assessments.
Cheryl, are there any cards?
Yes, Mayor, I do have cards. Sunday Barreto.
Good evening.
Evening. Okay, I have thank you all for listening to us tonight. I have a couple concerns. First of all, option 1, as we were discussing just now. If you're refunding an individual, a cash refund, then you should refund everybody who paid into it. It would be unfair and not honorable to take that money and refund to some and not to others. I think that's what I would say. I have no problem with option 1. I think, though, that if you're going to refund it, it has to be to all LMD4 residents, past and present. If they paid into it, they deserve their refund as well. I have a list that I have compiled of former LMD residents that want their money. They're okay if the money stays in the LMD, but the minute a refund comes, and this goes for option 2 as well, any form of a refund, you can call it a lowered assessment, but if it's benefiting my pocketbook, it is a refund. And it is unfair to give to a current LMD resident, let's say that bought the house last week. How would you even calculate option 2? I don't even know how you would begin to. You would take from previous homeowners, and then you would reward a new homeowner who just purchased in there. Again, not a problem if it's benefiting the LMD as a whole, but when you're benefiting somebody's individual pocketbook and taking from another person's pocketbook, it's not right. So with option 1, if you refund everybody across the board what they paid in, they get back out. No problem with that. I have a problem with option 2 because I don't think it's even doable. I think it's a cluster. I don't think it's going to work. And as far as the trail fence goes, that seems to be a fitting, appropriate approach to a solution. It stays in the LMD, it benefits the LMD, not the individual. And that, I think, it's the goal of governing the LMD, is to benefit it as a whole, not the individual resident. I don't care either way how that goes. I just want it to be fair. But I do want to say this. We were all called out to a meeting October 25th, 2016. 40 people showed up out of, 582, I believe, in the district, and they were allowed to vote on an option that's not even a feasible legal option. I don't believe that meeting was not handled properly. And now council is taking the brunt of this decision. They're being forced to make the decision and be the bad guys. And I want it on record that this never should have come down to this. We shouldn't have been given an option to vote on something that wasn't legal. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunday.
Rosa Zuniga Green. Jody Weber.
Mayor, Council, thank you. I do want to correct a few things. I'm looking at Streets and Highways Code, Section 18092, which specifically says, any surplus assessments collected shall be applied by the City Council to reduce the assessment to be levied either for the next ensuing contract year or for the last contract year under the proceedings. So, you don't get to keep it in the fund. You don't. So as much as it is the district's money, you can't keep the surplus. So the question is, what do you do with it? And I think Mr. Harper is right. There isn't any provision to give cash refunds. While I do recognize that there was a majority of individuals, which I was present at that meeting as well, that did opt for that option of returning the funds. Again, in principle, I can certainly agree with that, but I don't agree with the $12,500 cost to be levied on the LMD for consideration of that return when it wasn't the LMD's negligence. And so I certainly am against that cost should be levied against the LMD for return of those funds. And you do have a problem with past homeowners having paid in to the LMD and not being able to recoup those funds under option 1. The one individual that gave you the hybrid was myself, so I will tout that. For 2 reasons, let me tell you why. First of all, because of this particular provision that identifies the fact that the surplus should be levied against the current or next year's assessment, because that's the way that you should do it under the law. The other option, the reason why I did it as a hybrid, because the City Council has already identified the trail fence project in the LMD, and we've already budgeted for it. So I don't consider necessarily that, given that you've already budgeted for it and you haven't assessed us the full cost for that yet, I think you can use that surplus to something you've already voted on as being a project for the LMD. So I thought it was a good balance based on the numbers, which we didn't really get into tonight. We did get into it before, and obviously at all of our yearly meetings when we talk about the actual budget and the expense and how much we've already put towards the trail fence replacement in addition to what the costs are, and it will balance out. And that's why I thought it was a good option, because I'm obviously, as an officer of the court and a licensed attorney, I can't support something that's not supported by the law as far as a refund, even though in principle it does sound good. So thank you very much.
Lance Gregory.
Hi, Lance.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council, and staff. I concur with exactly what Sunday and Jody have both said on this. On the refund of option 1 is what I still support. I've said since day one I support what the majority of the residents want, whichever way that went. And both times they met with the city, the majority has requested the refund. In the council meeting in July, the options were said to all be on the table no matter what after the meeting. And it was reiterated several times by council members that if the residents said they wanted the refund, that was still available. City attorney said yes, all options were still on the table. Again, as it was said, how is Wilden justifying the option of only current residents if there's no provisions within the statute handling a refund where they coming up with the statute and the criteria that it's only current. I agree with Sunday completely on that. I think it's completely unfair. It should go to the person that paid into it. My worry is any lawsuits that are filed against that, who's going to pay the fees for the legal fees on that? Is that going to come out of the LMD to fight it in court, or is the city going to have to deal with that? I also agree with Jody, the $12,500. Why should the residents pay for these fees? The residents didn't make the mistake. The city made the mistake. Go ahead and absorb that and make the residents whole. The problem I have with this whole thing is there's 3 different meetings on this, 2 private with residents and 1 here in City Council. The information has changed 3 different times on the legal advice on this thing, and I think that created a heck of a lot of confusion in this. So I hope we use this as a learning experience and we get our ducks in a row, and next time we present, if God forbid this ever happens again, we're ready to deal with it and say, here's the direction. So there's not a lot of he said, she said, and somebody has to walk away as a bad guy, because it shouldn't be the city against the residents in this issue. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Lance.
Dan Leach.
Hi, Dan.
Hello, Mayor and City Councilman. I support option 1. I think that they should refund. And as going on with the fencing, if you replace it all in 1 year, 15 years down the road, you're going to have an issue with failure of the fence all in 1 year. So I think that the progressive way they're doing it is a better option. And thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes public comments.
Thank you, Cheryl. Kevin, you want to start? Or Robin?
So I'm not in favor of option number 1. I don't think it's legal. I don't think that it should have been even brought forward at all. I think that that was a mistake made at that meeting. I also don't see the upside of, if you do go with option 1, which again I don't feel the statute covers, we'd be like the first ones to do it. Looking for everybody would cost a lot of money. I mean, let me preface this by saying that there's a couple factors that we don't think about in these LMDs. One is they go broke, and they go broke all the time. In fact, most of them go broke after a certain amount of time, and they just keep raising the levies. That was one of my concerns back in the early 2000s when we started with the LMDs. I also really want to look at the most bang for our buck. I'm quite proud of the fact, while I understand that people want to call it negligence, what I see is that the money was found and staff returned it. And I think, just truthfully, part of that was with the new hiring. Andy hired some people that are very sharp, and they were directed to look at things, and I'm impressed by that. We didn't try to hide it. It was found. That money would have been there whether we found it or we didn't find it, and as soon as we could, protocol-wise, we put it right back into that account. It's no individual's money. It is that organization's money, and I think it's important just to look at that from a business standpoint. They are in the catbird seat at this moment. The other part of that is when these go broke, we pay for them, and we also pull out services. I mean, it's not fair. The problem with LMDs and CDFs and all that stuff is the fact that they go broke and the general fund suffers if you get council people that decide to fund them that way. That isn't right, and it's one of the reasons they're allowing people to overbuild. They know 5 to 10 years they go broke, and everybody goes, oh my God, I can't afford to put police in there. I can't afford to fix the trails. I can't afford to fix the concrete. That is the reality of what's facing a lot of cities in the next 5 to 10 years. Number 2, I have to agree that in a way you're kind of once again giving people the opportunity that really didn't pay into the fund. It's not their money specifically, it's their fund's money, and I worry that looking back and then having to charge people or give people something they didn't pay for, I don't think is fair to everybody. I realize there may be lawsuits, but the people they're going to sue, they're going to be suing themselves. They're going to sue the organization. So that might be something to consider. In terms of utilizing the trail fence replacement, I personally like 3. I get that maybe, but in listening to Jody, and I have a question. Technically, is this a surplus, John? Or what is this legally?
It won't be a surplus until the next, if you didn't do anything with it, until the next budget year.
So at this moment, it's not a surplus.
Right now, it's just money to spend on an improvement.
Right.
And if you chose not to spend the money on improvements, then Jody's right. It's a surplus and needs to be used to reduce assessments.
So I think while I understand, I mean, let's say somebody lived in a house for 3 years. Talking to Brian today, what, about $115 a year, give or take?
Is the problem is $102 to $110 because
let's say
the assessment changes for each person. Each parcel is a little different.
Right. So let's say you get $300 back or $400 back. Is it better to put in trail fencing that enhances the entire neighborhood and brings up the property values of that neighborhood? So for me, and council may agree or disagree, I like 3. I like the idea that we replace the fencing. To Mr. Leach's point, I think he makes a good point. But this is also fencing that tends to last a long time. It doesn't tend to, because I talked to Dave Gonzalez about this, it doesn't tend to all fail at the same time. Wood fencing does, but is this true that the plastic fencing tends to, depending on its location, tends to not fail all at once?
Yeah, I would say that that's fair, and you would start to evaluate, this particular fencing, life expectancy 20 to 25 years. The engineer and I were talking about that today. So you're going to start inspecting that and taking a look at it, and then you would probably put sections that are up for replacement somewhere in year 19, 20, or whatever. But typically, you would not see failure with this type of fencing
all at
until
once.
there, unless,
And then in terms of giving the money back, again, now you're talking $50 a year, and I know the law doesn't allow this, but man, if something happens in that LMD and you guys are on the hook for it, you're going to have to pay for it. I wish, in a way, you could just squirrel that away. I realize you can't, so for me, I think investing it in the trail fencing was probably the best option for the most amount of people. And that's all I have to say, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Robin?
Brian, quick question on option number 3. All the trail fencing gets completed. What would happen to the regular assessment for the folks in that district?
I don't know if I understand the question.
Well, because right now, part of the assessment is for the trail fence improvement.
Right.
Would they, if all the trail fence was improved, obviously we're still going to put away money for future trail fence projects. Is there going to be a reduction in that amount? Like, are they going to see a reduction?
We would discuss that today. Actually, there would be a reduction. You would see, they would actually see a reduction in their assessment because that $75,000 that we put away every year would be reduced. We haven't done the numbers on that exactly, but it would be, we were looking at it, would be probably a significant reduction. At some time, it may have to catch up so that we have the replacement money to put aside when it's time to replace. But yes, we would see a reduction.
We just don't know what that would be.
I can give you an approximate what that is. It's about $74 a year of a reduction.
Okay. I would like to say thank you to Jody for clarifying some of the information. I will tell you this has been pretty difficult in going back and forth and what's allowed and what's not allowed. And for me, it's been a process of looking at the LMD kind of as a whole and as a unit instead of individual people. And so just like most of the other decisions we make up here, we have to make decisions that are going to benefit the whole. And so I definitely believe that option number 3 is where I'm leaning. I had 2 of them kind of in mind this morning. I will tell you option 1 was one of those that I had in mind, but I had a concern with only refunding people that are there because you're taking away from people that paid in without some mechanism to give it back. So that's completely, in my opinion, unfair. So I'm definitely leaning towards number 3, because I think it's going to be good that the LMD will benefit, and essentially every individual in that area will benefit by a reduced assessment after the fencing is taken care of.
Mr. Mayor, could I just ask a question? So the reduction of the assessment, $74, we're talking about $102 if we were to give people back money. So let's say 3 years, 102, 3 times, or would the assessment run more than 1 year? The reduction in assessment as they're building those, putting in the fencing?
Let me quickly run through some of the numbers for you. Currently, with the homes up there, to generate the $75,000 is $133.45 a year. Okay. For a 25-year plan, based on today's cost for vinyl fence replacement, we'll need $33,397 per year, which equates to $59.43 per parcel per year for 25 years to generate today's dollars necessary to replace the 64,000 lineal feet of fence that's up there. And so that's how I came up with the $74 of the savings by going to vinyl, which is a 25-year life expectancy versus a 12 to 15-year life expectancy. But again, that's today's dollars.
So for 4 to 8 Starbucks, you're going to get all your fencing replaced in 1 year?
It's probably going to be reduced to 2 Starbucks because it went up again. Yes.
Okay. I don't drink Starbucks. I mean, my point is that we're talking $20, $30, $40 really in the long run, and you get the fencing replaced. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Dominic, on option 4, what was your number for the one-time reduction on the 50-50 split?
I never really calculate the 50-50 split, but a wild guess on that, it's going to be half of it. And so we'd be reducing the assessment down probably somewhere into the $90 range, which would be about a saving of $37 per year.
Okay.
But again, I haven't done that particular calculation.
Okay. So my thoughts on this were that, when we had the meetings at Nellie Weaver Hall, and the majority of people that did show up, whether that meeting was mishandled or we didn't communicate well as a city on that, the majority of those folks did show up, and the majority did want the full cash refund. And for quite a while, I supported that. I guess there's 2 problems. That one, we can't do it, basically illegal. That concerns me. But the other part was that the cost to do that option and those rebates being borne by the residents of the LMD. And kind of where I take issue with, and I get that part of it, but where I take issue is that, well, the city's responsible, but we're all the city, and that's the other side that troubles me with that option is, why should my neighbor have to pay for that? I mean, we're all in it together, so that shied me away from option number 1, though. That's what the majority of the folks that showed up wanted that night. And option number two is basically the same way. I don't think that's fair and reasonable also. Like I said, if I paid in years ago and I'm no longer a resident of that LMD, that's not right. I think when you get between 3 and 4, and that was my question on option 4, the dollars it's not enough to make a real difference. So I'll agree with the comment Robin made, what benefits the whole, and the only one that I can really see that way is option number 3. No. I was going to ask if Robin had any further comments, or you, Kevin?
And this would be for staff. If the council, as the directing body of the LMD, went with option number 3. When would the residents of LMD number 4 see trail fencing completed?
Staff had a long discussion on that today, trying to figure out how to put 45,000 lineal feet of fence up. Our best guess is it's like a 9-month construction project, and so it's probably looking at about a year and a half to get it all up.
Okay, thank you.
And the removal's the issue, is getting that 49,000 lineal feet of fence out without breaking a whole lot of sprinkler systems, et cetera.
That's what I've always liked about engineers. Construction in heaven, that it's a 9-month project, but it'll take a year and a half.
I'm trying to be, I'm trying to put it in real terms.
Does any member like to make a motion or a recommendation?
Motion to put into place number 3.
Councilmember Grunmeyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Bash?
Yes.
Mayor Newton?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And thank all of you for all your participation in this ongoing matter. Item F. Andy?
Sure. Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, this is a carryover item from your last meeting. And this item pertains to 2 projects. One is the Riverside Transmission Reliability Project and the Saco Cities Reliability Project. During our discussion last City Council meeting, you directed me to find out what our neighboring cities are doing with respect to this project, whether they are taking positions.
I apologize. I didn't ask Ted to come back.
Oh, sorry about that.
I'm sorry, Andy. Sorry, Ted.
We forgot about it.
That's... Sorry.
Anyway, as I was saying, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, this is a carryover project from your last meeting, and this pertains to 2 projects. One is the Riverside Transmission Reliability Project, and another one is the Saco Cities Reliability Project. During that last council meeting, you directed me to find out from our neighboring cities what their positions are with respect to opposition or support of any of these 2 projects. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend the CPUC scoping meeting that took place on February 8th. We had a planning commission conflict that night, but I did reach out to the 2 cities, the city of Corona and city of Eastvale, with respect to the Saco Cities Reliability Project. Both the city of Eastvale and the city of Corona are opposing that project. They essentially want Edison to do undergrounding of the electric lines rather than overheading of those lines. This is in regards to the Saco Cities Reliability Project. The Corona City did tell me that the main reason for their opposition of the Saco City Reliability Project is that this city goes through a good portion of their city, particularly in those neighborhoods that serve very low-income neighborhoods, and they would rather have this project be undergrounded rather than have them overhead. Similar concerns were expressed by the city of Eastvale, but with respect to the Riverside Transmission Reliability Project, Both the city of Eastvale and the city of Corona do not have a position on this. The Riverside Transmission Reliability Project does not actually impact the city of Corona, and they did inform me also that they didn't want to take a position on an ongoing dispute between the Harupa Valley, city of Harupa Valley, and the city of Riverside with respect to that project. So they have not taken any official position, and I don't think they will be taking any official position with respect to opposing or supporting that Riverside Transmission Reliability Project. And similarly, there has been no position taken by the city of Eastvale with respect to that project. That is the information I was able to find out.
Thank you, Andy. Questions of the city manager? Robin?
No.
Ed?
I hear all of it, but yeah, so they're not really giving us any concrete direction of what the other cities are doing. That's what I gather from you. As far as what Harupa has done, the rest of them are just not making a stand, taking a stand.
Again, with respect to the Saco Cities project, which is the project that goes through the city of Chino, the city of Eastvale, the city of Norco, and the city of Eastvale. All of these cities, again, the city of Corona is in opposition of that project. They want the project to be underground as opposed to overhead. The city of Eastvale has the same position with respect again to the Saco Cities reliability project. But pertaining to the Riverside Transmission Reliability Project, neither the city of Corona nor the city of Eastvale has taken any formal position on that or plan to take any formal position.
Andy, for those who know, the Circle City project is going to go right down River Road, correct? And it's going to go right through our city. But isn't the time for that, for comments already done on that project? I mean, it was last year when it went through its hearings.
Right. I think one of the items that was indicated in the scoping meeting letter that went out to the cities, it did reference that Saco City Reliability Project because one of the items that was being considered is whether the environmental impact relating to the Riverside Reliability Project and the Saco Cities project could be combined. And the two projects looked as one. Now, again, I did not attend the meeting on February 8th, so I don't know how that issue was handled during that scoping meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Kevin?
Well, I attended that meeting, and the Circle City issue was not addressed. I'm actually kind of surprised that Corona and Eastvale haven't made a position because they certainly have individually. This obviously will touch part of Norco. It will go right by our northeast quadrant. One of the issues that's at hand, the history of this, is that essentially Riverside needs power to sell, and you will not get any benefit whatsoever in Yorupa or any of the other places. It's just a project that was begun prior to them becoming a city. So one of the issues is, does another city have the right, once you achieve cityhood, just to run above ground lines through areas that, well, by the way, they're going to have eminent domain houses. They're going to run right through areas where they want to use it for economic development. It'll go wrap right around the northeast side of Norco. And then literally they will run right across the entire Hidden Valley area, running right just south of the Hidden Valley Nature Preserve. It'll run right through La Sierra. There were quite a few La Sierra residents that were opposed to this. They'll lose their views. Riverside has been extremely callous to pleas from Yurupa Valley that they not do this. Again, there's no benefit to Norco, there's no benefit to anybody but them. But really the question, and I spoke as a private citizen, but the real question is does another city have the right to do this? And I think Corona and Eastvale, rather than think about a supervisor's race and worry about getting elected and losing votes, which is really what this is about, I think that they ought to understand that Eastvale, Yurupa Valley, Corona, and Norco are joined at the hip. We survive together. And I'm really hoping that they will look at this and go, boy, we need to support Yurupa Valley. Norco, it affects us. We've got 2 residents here who were there that night. People are really upset. There were quite a few Norco residents who don't want this to happen. Now, there's the flip side, and Ted brought this up, and it was something that crossed my mind, is you probably, if you put in all of those tall power lines across Hidden Valley, they probably won't build houses there. And but at the same time, they might build houses there because suddenly you may not want to protect that particular green belt. And as you know, I spent a lot of time in Riverside, as did his wife, fighting to not have that acreage rezoned. I think it would be a tragedy to do this. It would just be ugly. I think they can now put the stuff underground. I'm really irritated that I couldn't get the support when they were putting in the new posts along Hamner Avenue to put those underground, but they lied to us. I'm not a fan of Edison. They lied to us and said they couldn't put them underground. I hope what we will do is we will support Yurupa Valley in not having this run through their city and stand up to Riverside. Now, Riverside's argument is they're saying that when they're underground, it's better if they're up in the air because you're more protected from the waves. Underground, it doesn't protect you from the magnetic flows. Mike Gardner told me that. And so I'm not exactly sure if he's correct or not, but again, I just think we need to support Yurupa Valley in their efforts, and because it does touch Norco. If we have comments, I'm not sure if we have to adhere to this, but we have until the 24th of February to turn things in. I brought the meeting minutes and all the things. If you want this information, I don't know, Andy, if I give you this, maybe you can send it out to council. It's the entire presentation. Again, there's 2 issues here. One is it's ugly, but 2, does one city, it's why we became a city, because they were beating us up. They were taking our land. Yurupa Valley, they're struggling, they're fighting real hard, and they've saved their city. It's a group of people that have fought hard to survive, and the governor has just treated them miserably. They're getting no support from Sacramento, which we can relate to. I hope we will support Yurupa Valley in their efforts and say no to Riverside on this and let them find another route because what they're going to do is sell the power. That's about all I have to say right now. We do have some people. I hope you guys will get up and speak.
This could be a Chad question, or if you can answer it, Andy. Riverside, and Kevin, you jump in. Riverside is they have their own electric company.
That's correct.
Okay. So where this reliability project, where is the electricity generated from? Is it from Riverside, or is it?
They're running it from Chino. And what's clarification, Riverside and the PUC are the ones doing this. Edison's just the contractor.
Right.
Well,
I didn't know they generated it in Chino. Or is it?
Well, that's what it.
Or is it coming from a substation?
The Maryland substation.
Okay, so it's a substation, but that power is being generated to that substation. Correct?
Yeah, my general understanding of the PUCs that develop electricity is they're really buying it from the grid, and they remarket it to their customers.
Right.
So where it originated from, I couldn't tell you. But again, it's brought to the area, and they're a customer that are are obtaining contracts to have that power brought to their service area, and then they redistribute it to their customers.
And does Riverside have this need for their current customers, or are they looking to settle or sell that power out in the market or back to the grid?
That information I don't know as far as what their operation requires.
There were people at the meeting that claimed that what they really wanted to do was they wanted to sell it in the open market. I don't know if that was accurate or not, though.
The official information as was contained in the document says, again, this is a reliability project that provides redundancies to their current customers.
So I guess that statement is accurate.
You can sell your redundancies if you have that type of surplus.
Because that word was used, that they were going to sell their redundancies. That's what, she seemed very knowledgeable when she stood up. She said they're going to sell their redundancies.
Really? That was just a blind shot on my part. I'll withhold the rest of my comments. Do we have any cards?
Yes, Mayor, I have one card. Jim Pollard.
Hi, Jim.
Hi there. Andy, council, staff, I was there at the meeting last week and at Hoover High School, and it was very well packed with people that would oppose this. And Hoover Valley, Norco, we won't receive any benefit from this at all. The only thing is these poles are what, 90 feet tall? They're horrendous looking. They had pictures of them there. They weren't ashamed of that. Like I say, we will not benefit from this at all other than these poles going through our... And why can't we make Riverside pay for them putting them underground? Because if you go along Arlington, these poles through the Hidden Valley Wildlife Area are going to be obnoxious to look out at those mountains with the snow on them that we see them today. And not only will the poles be there, but they have to have access roads continuously through these poles so they can maintain them, which is going to be a swath of dirt road. And I oppose this mainly because I don't think that, in today's age that, I don't know how it's going to affect us, medically with, these power things coming off the poles. I'm not sure what you call them, but where I'm directly affected is the Circle City project because my backyard is on River Road. And not only myself, my animals, my grandkids, but we have 2 schools along there on River Road too. So the Circle City project, we have to look at that strongly, and I agree that all our cities should stick together and fight this and make it the best possible, safest way. Thank you.
Thank you.
No more cards on this item.
Thank you, Cheryl. Any further comments? Ted?
When this first came up, the first thing that came to my mind was NIMBY, not in my backyard. Yeah, that's because we're upset. It's in your backyard, and you have a right to be. So then I did a little more homework on it. And interesting thing, you brought the power source. There are farmers up in Northern California that are going through the same problem. Power up there, they have a different name. It's not Southern California. So, they're upset because they're bringing these large transmission lines through their property. And not because of the power they're upset. They're upset of the power source, and that's why you brought that up. They're bringing in source, the generation of the power is from alternative fuels from out of the state. In other words, because of Sacramento and the people up there, they're not building these alternative power plants in Sacramento. They're bringing power from outside of the state to run through their property. In other words, the farmers up there are losing farmland because cities want to capitalize on this and not thinking about what goes on in their own state. And that's why you were right, is where does this power come from? It's probably being generated out of state. And because we don't generate enough. You see what Sacramento's done to all our alternative power sources, or our dams. So, I'm not a big favor of this, and my son-in-law works for one of these electrical contractors. Yes, he goes up and puts the high lines on, but he started at the bottom. He was putting high power lines underground in vaults, and that's what he does. And so it can be done. And so when they tell you it can't, it's because it's expensive. That's why they don't want to do it. But my concern is, if we oppose this, are we jeopardizing, and Andy, you can answer me this, are we jeopardizing our fight to keep on the Circle City project underground? Because we need to get that one underground. Through River Road. Is there a jeopardy?
I don't think so. I don't see.
Okay, I'm
that one being for the other.
Okay.
So I don't see it as a trade-off.
All right. Because we formally opposed the Circle City project, correct?
I don't think we have an official letter sent out to Edison in opposition of that project.
So if we put them both together, and if we agree that we could actually do that we don't want to ruin our vistas. Oh, okay, thank you.
We may have commented before on the Riverside reliability transmission project.
Yeah.
Several years ago, but we have not taken official position with respect to the Circle City's project.
And not to pick on Eastvale, I love Eastvale. It's a life support system for Corky's Restaurant. But you'll notice that all the neighborhoods, all the power lines are underground. They've got very few large above ground, and I think that's important to note.
Robin?
I would oppose the project, and I guess I mildly understand the other cities' concern with getting involved with a dispute between Harupa Valley and Riverside, but I think it's pretty clear what our residents want. I think it's pretty clear as individual council folks what we think is important. So I don't personally see a problem with going on record as a city that we're opposed to both of the projects.
I think my first concerns are the area of California North and those residents, and whatever health impacts there would be, which we either may know or not be aware of. But the other thing is, I think this is a much larger dynamic that I think when you get into that game with Edison and the PUC, that we probably have a very small understanding, and I'll always fall back to my gut that you can't trust Edison as far as you can throw them. So just based on that, I would certainly support that our council, one, that we look out for our residents, but that we also oppose this project. Well, how do you want this as a motion or direction to staff?
Yeah, one and the same.
One and the same to you?
That's where I see it.
Kevin or Ted, Robin, go ahead and make a motion. Go ahead, Robin.
I would like to make a motion that the city of Norco and the city council go on record as being opposed to the Riverside reliability project and the Circle City transmission project.
Second in that.
So Other than that, given that, what I would then do is draft a letter for the mayor's signature that will go to CPUC.
Can you also CC Rupa Valley and maybe shame Corona and Eastvale by letting them know we're doing this too?
Comments primarily from the city of Corona is one of not taking sides in a dispute.
Okay.
Because again, they are not impacted by this Riverside Reliability Transmission Project.
What we'll do on the Circle City project is we will support Edison's bid to put them above ground in Corona, but underground in Norco.
We have a motion and a second.
Councilmembers Grunmeyer? Bash? Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman? Mayor Newton?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Any city council communications? Okay, Kevin?
So we talked about this today, Chad. When do you think we can get that scored? The next to Dr. Wan's veterinary clinic along the side street there, get the ramp scored?
As soon as the project has been completed and they've got their certificate of occupancy.
So they're in there. They're doing surgeries.
I did confirm this with the building department. They do not have a certificate of occupancy, so they actually should not be there. Public Works has not signed off on the project because they have
So
not
Greg
finished.
shouldn't have told you about it.
Well, they have not finished the trail improvements. They still need to remove the existing weeds. They need to add DG. They need to do some fence repairs on California, on Temescal. And until that's done and they're out, and then we will, because we can sign after their project is done, then we can go in and score the driveway because the contractor is officially done and we certified their work as designed has been completed.
Okay, and then when do you think you'll get the crosswalk at Riverview done? Teacher called me again this morning.
We'll take a look at it, see what the current condition is as
It's
far as.
pretty much scored out.
Yeah, we did do it last year, but we can go back and touch it up.
Thank you.
Steve, on Kevin's comment on the veterinary hospital, do we issue a temporary C of O?
Yeah, they can come in and that can be issued fairly easily within...
With a list of conditions.
Yes.
Do they have a temporary certificate?
Yep.
Then somebody from staff should be driving down there tomorrow, huh?
Yes.
Ted?
Hope Dr. Wong doesn't work on your horse.
Not anymore.
Just from March 4th at the Veterans Memorial, Jeff Anderson is going to be presenting a dog as far as Rebuilding Warriors program. That'll be at 10:30, and you're all invited. It's a good program. One of our veterans is going to get a dog from him. This is something that Councilman Grunmeyer and I spoke a little bit about. Yes, last month, or actually in November, the LA Equestrian Center was hit with a case of equine herpes virus. And it hit them hard. Quarantining horses, their facility lost a lot of money, and because of events that they had to cancel, and horses that had to be quarantined there. That quarantine was lifted on January 31st. And if you can bear with me, now just recently, as far as February 13th, there was another case of equine herpes virus. This one was to a warm blood out of San Diego, but the case originated in Thermal, where the horse was being boarded. This isn't something that we can ignore anymore. Biosecurity at equine events is very important. This is why I went in December when I attended these conferences. We have to have a policy and a plan. If you remember a couple years ago at the fair, we had the pigs. It was serious business. Brian, I'm not going to pick on your staff, but I know we've talked, but we really don't have a policy up there, nor do we have a procedure up there to handle this. We had over 150 horses there last weekend for a 2-day rodeo. We are going to have probably another 150 to 200 horses there this weekend. I don't want to be on that list from the California Department of Food and Agriculture that says we had an equine herpes virus or we have to quarantine horses or go find them, because you're not going to find them because we don't have a policy or procedures, and we're going to have egg on our face and we're going to lose money. They did a great job, the state, from once they did it, only because it came out of Davis. Biosecurity Toolkit for Equine Events, February 2012. This is their Bible. This reduces our liability and increases our chance of lessening of outbreak or quarantine at our facility. We are using Ingalls Park quite a bit, and we have to look at it, and I would hope that we have some kind of a group that is really looking at it as far as staff goes. And this is not only important because of who we are here. This is supposed to be Horsetown, USA, and we should be really taking it to heart about biosecurity at our events, because the number of horses that come into our city on these events, any one of them can be transferred, can be hosting that virus, and any virus for that matter. So we're jeopardizing not only our event center and the horses there, but our community as a whole, unless we have a plan. So I'm going to throw that out there, and hopefully Park and Recs will take the lead on this to come up with something that is good.
Yeah, since we last talked, actually staff has been working with the League of Equestrian Facilities and Agricultural Centers, and who also produces a document. And so we are working on a draft, and we'll sit down with one of our committees to look that over, and we'll bring that back to the council once we have completed the draft.
If I can tag on, can you make sure it includes all livestock? Because I know the pigs were a huge issue 2 summers ago, almost to the point where we didn't have a show, and the goats and sheep and all that stuff have issues as well. So if it could be all-encompassing, that would be great.
Yeah, and one of the things that Councilman Hoffman and I talked about too is that the other facet that we have to look at as Ingalls becomes an emergency disaster location. How are we going to deal with that if we're moving animals into that during an emergency or disaster? How are we going to manage that, and where are we going to manage them? So that was all part of the discussion. I do appreciate the comments.
Good. Robin? Yeah, on that same note, Brian, I went through this once. Even like with our open riding during the week, that you need the full spectrum.
Yeah, that's been part of the comments and discussions. Okay. And so we'll be taking a look at that as well.
Okay. The only thing I'd like to remind staff, and it's not being critical, is that I'm losing my patience with traffic calming report drawings at California and North. So I would like to have a schedule when we can have that on the agenda and start moving forward with that.
I did request that from RK, which, our city engineer. He indicated that they'd have a final drawing the first week in March. We actually looked at the preliminaries today, recognizing some of the options we thought were viable are no longer viable because of standard requirements for engineering. So we're looking at other alternatives to try to bring something, again, that's meaningful that we can have discussions about. So, again, apologize for the delays, but it's been more of trying to find out and determining whether or not the discussed options for some traffic calming could actually occur.
Well, I appreciate that you and Andy stay on our consultant. Andy? Any comments? Lieutenant?
Yes, sir.
Chief?
No, sir.
Gina? Brian? Steve? Chad?
I would like to remind the community that we're expected to have some pretty good rain on Friday and Saturday, including heavy winds. So again, if you don't have your sandbags and if you need them, please go to the fire station. I know they do have stand there and bags prepared. I think they will be preparing them and have them available. So do it now rather than during the storm. And we obviously, Public Works will be available should any emergencies occur. We will be out there to assist.
And the chief will deliver. Cheryl, City Clerk's Department? No comments? What I'd like to do is adjourn this meeting in the memory of Dee Scott, the wife of Corona Council Member Jason Scott, and Lisa Kay. And Kevin, would you like to make any comments?
Lisa's a Norco High graduate, and she died of the West Niles complications. Nick, of course, went to Norco High School, and they've lived in town their entire life, and she died. She went into a coma, but she was a beautiful woman and just a wonderful soul, and I think it's very appropriate.
Thank you. With that, we're adjourned.